Did the gang help Israel? From what I understand, and again, I'm piecing this together from the people that I talk to, both people that have recently escaped the or people who are still in Gaza, that the factional disagreements between the Dogmush clan and Hamas and other tribes within the Gaza Strip extend far beyond this last iteration. We are going to move on from the Venezuela stuff to Hamas
in the Middle East,
because Donald Trump this morning, as I told you, turned around and Donald Trump this morning basically was like, I got the boss call from Israel. It's time to change trajectory. For the past 2 days, Donald Trump has been openly stating that Hamas is actually doing the best job. They're combating gangs. They're fighting the gangs. They're fighting the gangs, which was shocking, right? And if you remember, what did I keep saying? I kept telling you, eventually Israel is going to tell him, no, Mr. President, you're not supposed to say that. You're supposed to say that they're being violent so you can give us just cause for further incursions into Gaza, and you can give us the opportunity to continue bombing Gaza so we can keep going with the genocide. You're up the bag for us. And as a matter of fact, that's precisely what happened. 2 days of news coverage talking about public executions, Hamas is barbaric, blah, 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 all this shit. And Donald Trump this morning, after getting a boss call, turned around and said this: if Hamas continues to kill people in Gaza, which was not the deal, we will have no choice but to go in and kill them. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Now, this was from 2 hours ago. Seamus reports the commander of an IDF-organized militia in Beit Leha, an ethnically cleansed city under full Israeli occupation, is claiming that Hamas is now massacring hundreds of children, women, youths, and elderly people with RPGs, and calls on Trump to intervene to protect Gazans. This obviously is not true. This is completely made up. As I covered extensively, in an effort to kickstart the recovery and rebuilding process, the interior security, which is led by Hamas, has created a field justice initiative where they are offering clemency to all collaborators with Israel as long as they have not harmed any of the Palestinians in the process. And those who have actually Palestinians, in an effort to create chaos and stolen aid, in an effort to create chaos at the point of aid delivery, which many collaborators did do with weapons that they got from Israel, with protective cover that they got from Israel. Some of those collaborators were executed. Now, for the record, a lot of people look to that and immediately go, the horror. It's understandable. This is a barbaric practice. Except, as Trump had repeatedly mentioned, this is in the absence of having any sort of judicial process, considering that every single ministry has been reduced to rubble in the Gaza Strip. This is a historic pattern that resistance groups have utilized. Not only that, but even countries that aren't being genocided, or countries that weren't under colonial occupation, like the United States of America, have the same capital punishment execution process for treason during World War II, for example. Right? So the notion that this is unique to Hamas is very stupid. It's not. Okay? It's not. It's not unique to Hamas at all. Every single resistance group that has ever existed, from Jewish partisans during the Holocaust all the way to the IRA, the ANC, the FLN, every single formation of militant resistance has done something similar, sometimes even far more brutal practices. Okay? As I covered extensively the other day. Having said that, of course, Israel wants to, one, foment discontent and disarray in the Strip by utilizing collaborator gangs, some of which are ISIS affiliates, some of which are clans that are that have long-standing tribal drama and conflict with Hamas and other factions as well. Israel wants to make it seem as though Israel wants to make it seem as though this is a civil war. It is not. Okay? It is not a civil war at all. This is just Israel-backed groups trying to shit up and actually stop the recovery and rebuilding process and create chaos. Not only was this acknowledged by the Trump administration for the past 2 days, that didn't stop Israel from obviously continuously claiming that this was a civil war and Hamas was like murdering babies or whatever. Donald Trump has finally gotten the boss call from Israel and has decided this must stop. Headlines have moved off of Hamas gangs in Gaza to news of public of said gangs, which through conservative outlets became twisted into simple dissenters and civilians being executed. Trump is now threatening the Hamas fighters if they continue. Okay? As I've said already, and I repeated this and I reiterated this position, the internal tribal council that still remains within Gaza that actually looks at all of the factional conflict amongst the clans, amongst the tribes within Gaza, has approached the situation under tremendous scrutiny and stated that what Hamas is doing is correct. Okay? There has never been a moment where resistance forces have fought against colonial powers under occupation or even a genocide where they haven't dealt with collaborators of said colonial entity in the exact same way, if not far more barbaric fashion. Okay? Just understand that. So, who knows where this will go, but it's not good. It's not good that Donald Trump is now changing his posture, especially considering that, this is the most consequential aspect of the second phase. And Israel is utilizing different parts of the agreement, cynically posturing as though Hamas is violating said agreement in an effort to violate the ceasefire altogether and go back to the genocide. This is where it matters the most. This is where Trump's statements and Trump's actions matter the most. Because as we have shown time and time again, the real spoiling party here is not Hamas. The real spoiler here is Israel. Always has been and always will be. Trump has to keep Israel in check to force Israel to abide by the previous negotiation standards that were set. The United Nations released a report yesterday criticizing Israel for lowering the humanitarian aid by half that was going into the Gaza Strip from 600 trucks to 300 trucks because Israel claimed that Hamas was not sending all of the bodies that they recovered. Hamas had said that this was going to take a while. Understandably so. So the two key factors remain: demilitarization and the captives that were slain being returned to Israel. Those are the 2 points that Israel will use to potentially go back to doing its unlimited. What matters here, like I said over and over again, is whether or not Trump will allow them to do so. We shall see. Bonsberry reports, Channel 12 is reporting that Hamas has seized dozens of trucks and hundreds of weapons from Israeli-backed gangs in recent days. They warn that Hamas's success in seizing weapons will continue as long as the Israeli occupational forces repositioning proceeds beyond the yellow line. However, anonymous senior Trump advisor going around telling various media outlets, including Al Jazeera, that any attempt by Hamas to reconstitute itself in a way that threatens Israel long-term is a violation of the agreement. Hold on. The advisors also have expressed the desire to provide a safe haven for anyone who feels threatened by Hamas, aka collaborators, beyond the yellow line, particularly in Rafah, where they expect the initial reconstruction to begin with a civil admin and local security. There's a predictable trend already emerging. Anytime the U.S./Israel sees something they don't like, they immediately go back to threatening genocide on Gaza. Regardless of it's actually a violation of the agreement, anything can be considered a violation to them. 2 Palestinians were by an Israeli quadcopter this morning in Khan Yunis. Government media office in Gaza. There are dozens of unidentified bodies among the 120 bodies we recently received from the occupation. Signs of hanging and clear ropes were documented on the necks of several martyr bodies. Channel 12 on Eitan Moore. Eitan returned from captivity speaking, reading, and writing Arabic with the Gazan accent fluently. We're really blown away by his level of Arabic. He writes Arabic like I write Hebrew. He reads books in Arabic, newspapers in Arabic. Director of the Palestinian Center for Prisoner Defense. All those arrested from the Gaza governorates since October 7, 2023, during the war of extermination, fall under the occupation's law of illegal combatant. Not a single detainee was charged or sentenced. All procedures carried out under a legal guise are formal and superficial measures that will not lead to any future outcome and serve to cover up the organized crimes committed against prisoners in the prisons. The characterization of illegal combatant or unlawful combatant is the same flimsy legal pretext for Trump's extrajudicial of civilians in the Caribbean, which most recently resulted in the of a Trini fisherman on Tuesday. The director of government media office in Gaza, large parts of the bodies we received are missing and not present, so we accuse the occupation of stealing their organs. The bodies of our people arrived in very poor and miserable condition. We have only been able to identify 6 martyrs out of 120. Our refrigerators can only preserve the martyrs for a week. Then we will be forced to bury them, said the director of the government media office in Gaza. Yes, I saw the Republican congressperson with the swastika flag in the office. I know. This is the Sky News report on the gangs that were being
1 week after
brought to justice by interior security forces.
I was agreed. Gaza is plagued by a different kind of violence. Instead of fighting Israel, Palestinians are fighting Palestinians. Hamas is reasserting control, taking on its rivals and settling scores. On Friday, Israel withdrew its troops in Gaza back to this area in green, leaving the area in white, where Hamas is now trying to regain control. In places like Khan Yunis, where our team filmed armed Hamas fighters parading with their weapons on Monday.
We're still banned from going into Gaza, so we're trying to piece together, along with our team inside there, what is going on and what seems clear as Hamas is taking on rival clans and militia.
Some of the most intense fighting has been between Hamas and the powerful Dogmush clan in a battle around an abandoned hospital here.
We've spoken to members of the Dogmush family who say Hamas came to arrest 4 of them, accusing them of collaborating with Israel. They refused to hand themselves in and opened fire instead, and in the ensuing fighting, the son of a senior Hamas leader was... The Dogbush family say they are now victims of a revenge campaign by Hamas.
An elder from the Dogmush family has told us that Hamas went on the rampage.
Hamas began a systematic destruction of properties, resources and homes in a terrifying way. I can understand when the occupation bombs houses, destroys resources and private property, it seeks displacement. But what I cannot understand is this deliberate destruction and burning of homes.
Other eyewitnesses have told Sky News Hamas destroyed several buildings in their battle with the Dogmush clan.
There's a field, not execution, but a field kneecapping that they're showing here. That's why I can't show it to you.
This video, first shared on Saturday, shows a man being shot in the legs by gunmen at a nearby intersection. And on Monday, videos emerged from the same place showing the public execution of several men. Sky News has not been able to verify the identity of the victims.
The Dogbush family say at least 28 people were in the fighting.
Did the gang help Israel? From what I understand, and again, I'm piecing this together from the people that I talk to, both people that have recently escaped the Holocaust or people who are still in Gaza, that the factional disagreements between the Dogmush clan and Hamas and other tribes within the Gaza Strip extend far beyond this last iteration. Having said that, from what I understand, they have worked. Like the people that have been executed thus far were executed specifically because they were known collaborators who had actually, according to eyewitness testimony, engaged in violence against those who were trying to get aid.
The most intense since Israeli troops withdrew from half of Gaza. Hamas seems to be trying to send a message to its rivals as it tries to reassert its authority.
The most famous, like the best way to figure this out for a lot of the Palestinians, especially, the best way to figure it out is whether or not Israel provides them with cover. Do they have Israeli weapons? Do they have arms that were given to them by the Israeli government? Do they get to work within the confines of Israeli seized territory, Israeli occupied territory? Okay, and out of all of the rival factions, the quote-unquote fake rival factions that were propped up by Israel, the Dogmush clan is the only one that isn't firmly within Israeli-controlled territory. Okay? All of the other ones, like Yasser Abu Shabab's Popular Forces or the North Gaza the new North Gaza Popular Mobilization, or whatever they call themselves. All of those guys are directly working with Israel. Everybody knows that they're directly working with Israel, and their base of operations is within the confines of Israeli-occupied territory, within the Gaza Strip, that is a red zone, as in, if you are Palestinian, there is constant 24/7 drone coverage over you, and they will, if you're a Palestinian that goes beyond this, like, this supposed yellow line that they have defined, which isn't like a literal boundary for the record, is just something that Israel has decided. If you're a Palestinian that walks past it or walks near that yellow line, Israel has been people, as a matter of fact, during this supposed ceasefire, the so-called ceasefire process, and claiming that it is because Palestinians are passing beyond that yellow line that they have designed. So if you are a Palestinian male that is enemy combatant aged, and you are existing within this within the Israeli occupied territory, then it's pretty obvious that you're a collaborator, right? It's pretty obvious that you are a collaborator, because otherwise Israel's you. So there's a couple different groups that we know for a fact are collaborators, but the Dogmish clan is the only one that has like actual Palestinians within the clan itself that are existing within the confines of territory that Israel has left. But yes, there is evidence that they were collaborating. There is evidence that they were collaborating with the Israeli forces, or at least like stealing aid and even harming people.
Another Palestinian we spoke to who witnessed the fighting told us people in the area do not want Hamas to take back control.
سياسة الترهيب والنار رجعت 17 عاما إلى الخلف تقاتل وتدمر وترجع.
Hamas rules through fear and back 17 years, killing, destroying and terrorizing the Palestinian people. The Palestinian people want elections, parliamentary and presidential, with international supervision inside Gaza, so that we can finally have legitimate leadership.
This is 100% absolutely correct, by the way. Like, the Palestinian people that want elections and legislative and presidential with international supervision inside of Gaza, that's totally fair. I mean, that is true. That is 100% true. That is the goal. And it's one that I don't think Hamas would actually disagree with. It's just that in order for that to happen, Israel has to no longer occupy Gaza. Like, this is not like a controversial position. The controversial aspect of it is that, like, Hamas has ruled the Strip with an iron fist for 17 years, and they don't want an election, like implying that they don't want to have any sort of legislative election, like real democracy, to happen. That part is not correct.
Hamas insists it is only enforcing law and order to prevent chaos in Gaza, and is not settling old scores.
The security forces are carrying out their lawful duty to impose order and prevent anarchy, holding offenders accountable. The occupation, for its part, has formed armed militias loyal to it. These militias are accused of high treason, the most severe.
Public executions are not the way to go about this. I know, man. I agree. It's cool. I like that. I like that we can have this standard for ourselves here, and you know, that's what I think about the Jewish partisans that actually cremated capos within the concentration camps for working alongside the Nazis. I'm like, how dare you do that? That's what I said. You know, when people actually assassinated, when the ANC engaged in the practice of necklacing, the brutal practice of necklacing, where they put like collaborators with the white Afrikaners in the apartheid structure. They would take tires and put them around the necks of collaborators and light it on fire after dousing it with gasoline. I was like, yeah, it's really fucked up. Maybe the apartheid should continue. Yeah, it's obviously, field justice is inappropriate. It makes sense. I am an advocate against capital punishment in the United States of America. But obviously the circumstances are a little different in Gaza right now, don't you know? Don't you feel like there is no semblance of a real judicial process here in this moment, considering that the genocide has been put on pause for only, 72 hours thus far? Don't you find it a bit odd that the people who are talking about this, are by and large Israeli envoys that not only are arming some of these clans in order to foment some kind of disarray, but also are the ones who are most responsible for the ethnic cleansing of all Palestinians, regardless of their creed or regardless of whichever clan they may come from? Don't you feel like it's very strange for anyone from Israel to make a big fuss about this? It's like, wow, how dare they kill Palestinian collaborators that collaborated with us during our genocide. The Shin Bet offered the Dogmush family financial and military support in exchange for participating in the fight against Hamas and providing security information to Israel. When they refused to cooperate, the Israeli army launched airstrikes. 30 members of the Dogmush family were killed in a bombing that targeted the Sabra neighborhood in southern Gaza City, while 20 others remain under the rubble. 28/9/2025, Anadolu Agence. Israel tried to weaponize aid, as was expected, and basically got other factions within Gaza to do what they claim Hamas was doing, which was intercept aid at the point of delivery, violently seize it from the Palestinians by killing them, and then use it as a way to draw in more support. They did that. That's what the collaborators and the compradors did.
Charge in Palestinian revolutionary law.
But President Trump's 20-point peace deal calls for the complete demilitarization of Gaza, and he's demanding Hamas gives up all its weapons before it's forced to.
We have told them we want to disarm, and they will disarm, and if they don't disarm, we will disarm them. And it'll happen quickly and perhaps violently.
This part of northern Gaza is still under Israeli military control, but in there, some Palestinian militia are setting themselves up, vowing to take on Hamas. In the north of Gaza, controlled by Israel, is the base of Ashr al-Amansi and his militia opposed to Hamas.
Yeah.
In the last 2 days, they've released videos showing off their fighters and weapons.
Yeah, they get their vehicles from the UAE, they get their guns from Israel, and they're beyond the yellow line. So there's no confusion about who these guys are and what they are doing. Okay, the only one that's like up for debate is the Dogmush clan, because they exist within, from what I understand, they exist primarily within the territory that Israel relinquished control back to Hamas.
And pledging to block Hamas's control of Gaza. Hamas, their commander says, is a terrorist movement.
It is pretty funny. Yeah, that's funny that this guy's saying that. It's pretty funny because, like, they're not very good, these guys. So Hamas, from what I understand, just keeps seizing more Israeli weapons from them. Okay. They keep getting their shit pushed in, and then that allows Hamas to gain more weapons and more vehicles from these collaborators. And then what ends up happening is that Israel gets pissed off and says, like, how dare they? How dare they fucking take these weapons? They're gaining arms. I don't like that. It's like, okay, well, you shouldn't have given those arms to these fucking collaborators. Yeah, as I've talked about already, Hamas is refilling its stockpiles from Israeli weapons. Hamas has confiscated hundreds of firearms, dozens of vehicles, and loads of grenades and ammunition, in addition to substantial amounts of cash that Israel's been giving to gangs, clans, criminals, and collaborators in Gaza. Several clans are now handing their weapons over to Hamas, including Al-Majida, Dogmush, Magasib, and some Terabin, in addition to individuals deserting to Israel-run gangs and turning themselves in return for amnesty. Israel funded, Hamas took over. The loot taken from the clans. This is from Mako. Not just arrests and executions. Military officials confirmed that weapons, vans, and money transferred to Hamas opponents in the Gaza Strip fell into the hands of the terrorist organization. They fell in love with this plan, even though it was clear where it was going, criticized the military official. Another very funny thing that Hamas had done is Israel dropped SIM cards within the Gaza Strip. Okay? Israel dropped SIM cards all over the Gaza Strip in an effort to create collaborators, in an effort to gain information and access to the hostages. Hamas actually took those SIM cards, okay, their shadow unit Arrow took those SIM cards and activated them the day before the release of all the hostages, or the day of the release of the hostages, so that those the prisoners of war, the captives that Hamas had, could speak to their families, which is very interesting. Using the using the colonial entities' grand ambition to cause chaos and destabilization against them. Yes, Hamas intercepted funds that were sent to the militias from Israel and the UAE and just took the money. Yep, exactly. Here, this is one of the, Al-Qassam brigades made video calls to the prisoner of war families using Israeli SIM cards that have been placed by the occupation army at various locations of Gaza to gather intelligence about the prisoners of war. Hamas collected these SIM cards, activated some of them before the handover, and then used them to communicate directly with the families of the POVs. There are some interesting images of like families that are very excited to be able to finally talk to their family members that were in Gaza for the past 2 years. And there's just a fucking Al-Qassam brigade dude in a balaclava standing right next to him, waving at the Israeli families. Yeah, one of the prisoners of war, one of the captives actually said that the anti-Hamas protest was staged by Hamas to move one of the captives from a dangerous place to a safer place as well. I read that, but I don't know if that's like valid. I don't know if that's like real or not. I read that too. I mean, it makes, I mean, obviously I believe the captive saying that like he was moved around during the protest. Like I definitely believe that, but I don't know if Hamas was the one who initiated the protest itself. I already covered this, the Palestinian Tribal Committee, the largest assembly of Gazan clans. I already mentioned that as far as their support for the field justice that Hamas is engaging in. What is this? Hasan Sama, why are you not covering 3i Atlas? Are you a part of the cover-up? I don't have no idea what that is. Yeah, here's one of the photos. After 2 years in captivity, Ram Breslavsky speaks to his family for the first time in a long time. Wait, is Ram the one who speaks fluent Arabic now? Is that the one? No. Is the Gaza Tribal Committee the closest thing that Gaza has to a central political entity right now? Yes, there is the resistance front, the different factions within the Palestinian resistance, and then there's the tribal council. And then there's obviously the interior ministries that they're trying to rebuild. Yeah, one of the captives actually learned to read, write, and speak Arabic fluently with a Gazan accent, as a matter of fact. That's what they were saying. Here's a video of him speaking to the PIJ before his release.
اسمي روم براسلافسكي وأنا مخطوف بين 7 أكتوبر 2023 سنتين. اليوم الحمد لله يوم الفرحة جاء. هذا اليوم اللي احنا بنروح فيه إن شاء الله.
لن يعود أسراكم إلا بقرار من المقاومة شئتم أم أبيتم.
After the release, Islamic Jihad posted a video from Ram Breslavsky film before his release. Following the prolonged starvation and abuse, they now posture as freedom fighters, but they are terrorists. Terror in Gaza continues to thrive even after the war ended. That's not half bad Arabic. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's like fluent or not. Maybe he's just like, they taught him to say that. But yeah, that's, he sounds Israeli Hasan. He does not sound like a native speaker. No, that's not the one. That's not the one. That wasn't the one, chatter. There's another one of the captives that apparently learned to speak Arabic fluently. That wasn't the one I was talking about. They just probably taught him to say that. Anyway, Trump's advisors have said there will be no reconstruction areas where Hamas still controls. We already covered that. Israel, of course, continues to block and oppose any alternative to Hamas, so this seems part of their goal, as described by its government, to block reconstruction. Barak Ravid reports, despite the fact that Hamas has not yet handed over all the bodies of the kidnapped deceased, the U.S. administration is interested in moving forward to the second stage of the deal and beginning the rehabilitation of Rafah. The details in my article. The rehabilitation of Rafah is exclusively designed by Western forces to present an alternative. They want to create like a Bantustan structure almost that is entirely controlled by Western interest and Israeli interest, in an effort to show Palestinians that there is like a more peaceful alternative if you collaborate with us. That's basically what they're trying to do, which in a weird, twisted, fucked up way, ironically is a perhaps more successful and much less violent way of showing a different alternative other than like brutal war and death and destruction, which is the only language Israel knows. The problem is, of course, everybody knows exactly what happens when you exist under Israeli occupation. Every Palestinian knows exactly what happens. Look no further than the West Bank.
Its fighters will be dealt with as collaborators. And in the south of Gaza, also in the Israeli-controlled area, the stronghold of Yasser Abu Shabab.
Yasser Abu Shabab is like the most famous one that I've covered quite extensively. Wall Street Journal opinion editorial writer Yasser Abu Shabab, who dropped out of second grade, is not literate in Arabic and certainly not literate in English either. He is despised by his own clan, by his own family. And is seen as like one of the primary collaborators with Israel. And he has run amok in southern Gaza with complete Israeli protective cover and still has a base of operations in Rafah, a real scumbag, drug dealer and ISIS affiliate.
The investigation revealed that Israel was helping Abu Shabab smuggle weapons, cars and cash into Gaza. The IDF had no response to our allegations, but Abu Shabab's power is thought to be drawn from protection from the Israeli army.
Yeah, he was disowned by his family, which you won't be hearing from. He was disowned by his family, but I suspect you won't be hearing that from Sky News.
Control of a key aid route. The people of Gaza are now spared the horrors of war with Israel, but now face the spectre of a civil war instead. The United Nations says the fighting between Palestinians is hampering the effort to get aid in.
We also need to be able to operate in an environment where our trucks and...
Well, in fact, the group from the north just shown members were arrested by Hamas pre-October 7 for stripping down and robbing women in Gaza. Abu Shabab freed them after October 7. Yeah, Abu Shabab himself was also in prison for drug trafficking. Israel freed Abu Shabab from prison. Abu Shabab himself is a notorious drug trafficker in the Gaza Strip and was in prison before October 7. After Israel's genocide started on October 7, they literally fucking broke a bunch of these criminals out of prison and then immediately started working with them as collaborators, which they already had experience working with them to begin with, so it wasn't that hard. A lot of the gangs that are currently running amok in Israeli-controlled territory of the Gaza Strip are all guys like that.
Our staff and our teams are not at risk from fighting and not at risk from looting from armed elements as well.
Under international law, Israel is responsible for all of Gaza, even the part it's withdrawn from. What isn't clear is how much it is deliberately stoking division between the rival Palestinian factions, aiming to divide and rule, as it has in the past.
Either way, the spiralling violence underlines the urgent need for an international security force proposed in the Trump peace plan to be sent into Gaza. So far, there's little sign of that happening.
It's pretty crazy that they just like don't even fucking mention basic facts about this stuff, even in the interest of like informing their audience, or it's just like so clearly one directional. Their coverage on this stuff is just like Hamas is not the party that is trying to desperately restore some semblance of order during the recovery and relief process, and it's actually all of these other gangs that are the real Palestinians that abide by the wishes of the real Palestinians. It's fucking crazy. Yeah. Side effect of Western media not mentioning that the gangs Gaza security forces have been battling are proxies of the IDF who support the full scope of Trump's plan. Trump sees the headlines that Hamas is battling gangs with no other info and thinks they're doing a good job. That was, of course, 2 days ago. And as I told you, as I fucking told you, it don't matter because he got the boss call anyway. That was an accidentally based comment, except I told you it was going to eventually, Trump was eventually going to turn around and be like, okay, never mind. Actually, it's not good that they're doing this because Israel wants to use that as a new narrative. Israel wants to use that as a narrative, and Trump just didn't know any better. He was just like, nope, they're doing all right.
Fire in Gaza, it's still holding. Hamas has returned the bodies of 2 more Israeli hostages, while Israel has returned at least 30 Palestinian bodies. New video shows a staggering destruction in Gaza. One group supporting the families of the hostages says the peace process should not move forward until all the bodies are returned. Officials in the region say that will be very difficult to do. Deborah Pattis in East Jerusalem with the latest. Deborah, on paper, it sounded like a very good plan. Please return all the bodies, but the reality has not been so easy.
Indeed, and a very good morning, Gail. Well, Hamas says it's handed over all the hostage bodies it can and needs specialized equipment to retrieve the rest. Senior U.S. advisors told CBS.
What's so crazy about this is like the way that Israel is talking about this shit in an effort to very clearly restart the genocide was that this was negotiated. This was discussed in the previous rounds of negotiation where both Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all the other resistance groups literally said, yeah, it's going to be a little difficult for us to extract all of the fucking slain captives because they're under mountains of rubble alongside our fighters because Israel killed them. Israel bombed them. The fact that Israel knew that and still chose to use that is expected, of course. But this is something that I talked about ahead of time. If you recall, one of the things that I said was that the second phase of the ceasefire was going to be the most consequential phase. And that was going to be the phase where Israel tries to fuck it up and restart the genocide. And that the two things that we're going to use is like the demilitarization stuff that's still up in the air, and also the extraction of all of the slain captives. So the very fact that Israel is using that is predicted, is expected. But once again, Trump has to make sure that Israel stays, make sure that Israel remains restrained here.
News, they are not at a point where they believe the ceasefire has been violated.
Israeli soldier Captain Daniel Perez was laid to rest on Wednesday after his family finally received his body held in Gaza for over 2 years. Perez was killed fighting Hamas during the October 7 attack. For his family, it brings fresh pain.
It's a new truth I have to face. It's proof that you're really gone.
To date, Hamas has returned 9 bodies. Senior U.S. advisors have told CBS News that the level of destruction in Gaza has made it almost impossible to...
Not to derail, but you have to confront Asmold at some point, man. Like, there's farming and there's being malicious. Both of you are too big to ignore now. Asmongold farming me. How unique and how different. I can't believe it. You're just now telling me this. Oh no. You're telling me now for the first time. You're telling me now for the first time.
Retrieve the rest, even if Hamas knew where they were buried. President Trump has weighed in.
It's a gruesome process. I almost hate to talk about it. But they're digging. They're actually digging. There are areas where they're digging and they're finding a lot of bodies. Then they have to separate the bodies.
Israel said it would return the bodies of 15 Palestinians in exchange for every hostage. For the past few days, the Red Cross has been transferring the remains of loved ones back to Gaza, but that too has been mired in controversy. We saw with our own eyes clear signs of torture and execution, said Gazan health official Sameh Hamad. Their hands and feet were cuffed, their eyes blindfolded.
Now, the bodies of 19 hostages remain in Gaza. Turkey has offered their assistance given their extensive expertise in recent catastrophic earthquakes. Vlad?
All right, Deborah Patta for us in East Jerusalem. Thank you very much.